Hello again. Of all the accusations which can be levelled against one in the modern world, such as being untruthful, vain, boastful, dishonest, manipulative, cunning, stupid, greedy, or promiscuous, there is one charge above all others which the average person fears to hear, and that is that he is guilty of racism. Even if unproven, the very suggestion of such a thing is enough to taint one's character and leave an indelible mark which others are likely to remember. The man who has had an affair with his neighbour's wife may hope that in time the memory of this indiscretion will fade in people's minds, but a public denunciation for racism will never be forgotten. When James Watson, discoverer of the structure of DNA and perhaps the most famous scientist in the world, died recently, the one thing every obituary focused on was the fact that almost 20 years ago in 2007, he had been accused of racism by a newspaper reporter. This is very odd. For the whole of recorded history, different groups of people, whether tribes, ethnic groups, or nations, have preferred to live alongside others who shared their language, customs, religious beliefs, history, and appearance. This preference for one's own group over all others has been universal, from primitive clans in the Amazonian rainforest to industrialized nations in Europe, from Africa and Australia to the United States of America. It is only very recently, since the end of the Second World War really, that it has become quite the thing among educated people in Europe and North America to feel uneasy about this desire to live among one's own kind. The word racism had been around for only 40 years or so when the war ended in 1945. In 1902, American General Richard Pratt said that segregating any class or race of people apart from the rest of the people kills the progress of the segregated people or makes their growth very slow. He went on to say that association of races and classes is necessary in order to destroy racism and classism. This was the first recorded use of the word racism, and it remained an obscure and little known expression for the first half of the 20th century, but then somehow took off in the 1950s and 1960s. It became almost a catchphrase or incantation of the left, a word bandied about at any opportunity and in connection with any undesirable situation involving white people anywhere in the world, whether South Africa, Rhodesia, or the American Deep South during the days of the Civil Rights Movement. In the process, a subtle but very significant shift in meaning took place. Up until that time, racism had been seen as a universal phenomenon, one seen everywhere in all cultures. By the end of the 1950s, though, it had become associated only with white people. So by the late 1960s, it was quite the thing to speak of the white racism in South Africa or the United States. But when the civil war in Nigeria broke out and the new nation of Biafra fought for independence, nobody mentioned that this was also a struggle rooted in racism of the Yoruba against the Igbo people. The famine in Biafra had powerful racial origins, but by that time racism had become a purely white affair. It was limited to something that white people did against black, rather than Indians against Chinese, say, which was very evident during the friction and wars between those two nations in the 1960s. Today, we see the most appalling racist massacres being carried out in Sudan as Arab forces openly attempt to kill all the black people living in the country. And yet you'll never hear the word racism used in connection with the conflict. If white people were slaughtering blacks in the same way, it would be called racism, of course. But because it is Arabs, nobody thinks in such terms. The murder of tens of thousands of black people simply because they are black is never described as racist if carried out by Arabs, but just let some British celebrity make an unguarded remark about black people, and then the accusations of racism fly fast and thick. One recalls famous historian David Starkey speaking in a rather thoughtless way on the subject a few years ago, and how swiftly racism was invoked on that occasion. The reason being, of course, that he is white. When bayonets and bullets are used by Arab militias in Sudan to rid their country of black people, not one person mentions racism, but a few casual words by a white man, and the word is soon all over the place. Racism is now firmly established throughout the West as a white sin, and everybody else in the world is free to behave pretty much as they please with regard to race.